Thank you, Kevin. Okay, Mary Ann, you're next.
I'm presuming, Chairman Bell, that you've got a time constraint, so
You go right ahead.
I can go through our slides a little quicker than possible
Okay.
in order to be sensitive
Sure.
to the timing. I am Mary Ann Guido. I'm the chair of the Irvine Community Land Trust. I'm a former city councilwoman in Irvine and the
good.
current planning commissioner. I've been involved with affordable housing in the city since it was incorporated in 1971, and we've had affordable housing and inclusionary zoning since the beginning, and we've been able to we've had the luxury of creating affordable housing each one of our villages as they were built with market rate units. So it's an unusual situation, but today I want to talk about the benefits of a community land trust, because the community land trust keeps the housing affordable in perpetuity. It breaks my heart to see so many units that we have done in the city of Irvine have expiring subsidies, and we're losing. We're not ahead of the game. We really are committed as a city council since the very beginning to try to make affordable housing, but we keep losing units. So I want to talk about the land trust model as a way to have affordability in perpetuity. So I want to point out we have a National Land Trust Network. It's a member organization, and it includes many types of community land trusts. Typically, the land trust focuses on low and moderate income households, providing affordable home ownership opportunities. And then in California, we have several land trusts up and down the state. As you can see, from San Diego to Humboldt County, we have established a land trust as a 501c3 nonprofit. And today, besides the 249 national land trusts, we've got California land trusts as well. And they're represented with me today from West Marin County and from San Francisco. They're in our audience right now. Now, what is a community land trust? As I mentioned, it's permanent stewardship of valuable housing resources. Some community land trusts, like the Irvine Land Trust, sponsored and supported by our local government, and others are very much community-based or privately supported. So the land trust model, it's flexible, it can be used for a variety of purposes, and that makes land trust different from other affordable housing providers is that the community owns the land, and this enables the development of permanent affordable rental and ownership housing.
Kevin's history.
Now, in the affordable housing ownership model, many communities in the state have provided down payment loans that require the loan proceeds to be recycled when the homeowner moves. This is typical subsidy recycling. In appreciating home housing markets, the owner receives all the equity gain, while the community must advance the ever-increasing subsidy amount just to provide more affordable housing in their community. So Community Land Trust works on this subsidy retention model. The subsidy retention means the funds stay with the home, and they create a permanent affordability without any additional public or private funds. So homeowners gain equity based on the resale formula that restricts the price at which the home is later sold. So this affordable home ownership model mutually benefits the home buyers and the community. It maximizes the public investment by providing a one-time investment, allowing for wealth generation, and maintains the affordable home ownership opportunities for future Californians. So what makes the land trust different is from other homeownership providers is the land trust owns the land underneath the home, and the homeowner owns the house and has a leaseholder right to that house from the land trust. It executes a long-term ground lease with the homeowner that spells out the requirements. Now, there's dual ownership of land, the ground lease resale formula, and the requirement that the land trust be notified before the homeowner refinances or sells the home. It's a basic provision to ensure that the home stays affordable. The Irvine Community Land Trust uses the area median income to determine the income qualifying standards and resale prices. Other typical lease components We have the maintenance provisions, inheritance provisions, property
Yeah,
tax
yeah.
provisions, and the ground lease provides security to the homeowner in that it's very long-term lease, usually 99 years. So generally, a homeowner will have the right and responsibilities of other homeowners in California. So the way a land trust, the community land trust ensures affordability over time is that any money, whether it's public or private, that's invested in the project to make the home affordable stays with the land, and it's never transferred or sold by the community land trust. Because the homeowner isn't buying the land, the initial purchase price is more affordable. The resale formula restricts the price when the home can later be sold at the amount that the next lower income purchaser can afford. So it's repeated over and over again, and it's accomplished with a single financial investment. And so this is important. So when public funds are used, you can be assured that your investment creates a permanent affordable housing resource for the state from a one-time investment. Permanent affordability requires permanent stewardship. Land trusts are stewarding the homes, the homeowners, and the public investment permanently. The ongoing stewardship is what makes this model work and what leads to permanent affordability. As land trust steward, our properties, the ability to retain them as affordable resource is managed by a private nonprofit and is not a burden to the state or the local governments. Now, the California Land Trust Network that I pointed out earlier, we've established a legislative program that's focused on creating equitable taxation of land trust homes. We need to have the land trust program recognized because property taxes on the properties developed by the land trust with resale controls are still taxed at full market rate. So the community land trusts need consistent and equitable property tax legislation for our projects, which are permanently affordable through deed restrictions and regulatory controls. State housing policy is needed to further our affordable homeownership model. 4 areas we hope the legislature will consider. Number 1, support Assembly Bill 2118, that's Assemblymember Chu, which addresses equitable property taxation to home buyers who purchase a home on community land trust land. When the homes are permanently affordable and the homeowner cannot realize market rate gains in value, the home should be based on the restricted value and not on the unrestricted value of a market rate home. So currently, assessors will only accept governmental deed restrictions for affordable rental projects. Assessors do not accept government deed restrictions on for-sale projects.
That's strange.
And we wanted to make that distinction. So community land trusts are working to help communities create permanent affordable homeownership resource, and the state housing policy could acknowledge community land trust deed restrictions when valuing community land trust properties. So local communities trying to create the affordable housing infrastructure need to have the authority to establish local inclusionary housing ordinances to help them achieve their housing obligations under state housing law. This is very important as the Community Land Trust can create permanent affordable housing through this program to help cities reach their affordable housing goals. And we've seen this in Irvine for 40-something years. State housing policy is urgently needed to allow the Community Land Trust home buyers the ability to access state-funded home buyer programs. And that concludes my presentation,
Okay,
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. It's very interesting. Okay, next we're going to have Professor Nico Calavita from San Diego State School of Urban Planning. Professor.
Do you want me to pass
He's never
these?
emeritus.
Do you want me to pass these out?
Oh, he wants the handouts, okay. Huh?
I said night legislator.
San Jose State I'm San Jose State Urban Planning, so.
We saved the best for last.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. This is what I'm interested in.
while we wait,
Put the mic over there, too.
let me go through. So I'm glad that there are lots of questions about inclusionary, which is something I'm very familiar with, so perhaps afterwards we can talk about that. But I want to, I guess first I should say I'm not a native of California, not even of the States, I'm native of Italy. What I would like to do this afternoon is to bring in the land aspect of providing affordable housing. Many years ago, Frank Popper, a professor of planning, mentioned that American planners do not consider land in their plans the way European planners and more lately Brazilian planners do nowadays. So that creates an issue where we do not appreciate what public regulations or public activities do to land values and act accordingly. So very simply, the concept of land value capture is that government actions create value in land and that we should recapture some of those increases in land through obtaining community benefits. I apologize for this lengthy description here, but this has to do with distinguishing between developers and landowners. Landowners do not do anything in the market. They just buy a piece of land and just they sit on it. They take a very passive role. Their windfall profits are realized not through producing goods for society the way developers do, but just waiting for the economy to grow around them, or wait for the public sector to build infrastructure, public facilities, schools, and more recently, transit stations. And therefore, the land values will increase as a result of public activities. John Stuart Mill, one of the classical economists, was the first one to point out that increases in land values are not due to the activities of the landowners, and therefore they are unearned increments in land values, and therefore they should be recaptured by the public. So in which ways does the public increase land values? First, through construction of infrastructure and public facilities, and we do have a mechanism which is special assessment financing to recapture value, which is increased through the construction of public facilities. But I'm not going to talk about that. What I will emphasize is how localities, through plan changes and upzonings, they will increase land values. And many communities nowadays are engaging in this value capture mechanism, including Santa Monica, and this is a list of the community benefits that Santa Monica utilizes, and affordable housing, workforce housing, is first in line in the list, and there are others there. What I want to emphasize is that as a result of capturing value of land through community benefits, the community obviously benefits. The landowner benefits as well, but not as much, because what we're capturing is some of the increase in land values that come as a result of the increase in densities and land changes. And the developer also benefits, perhaps not with inclusionary housing, but benefits when things such as open space and streetscape and other public infrastructure facilities are built, that the value of his development will increase as well. Does value capture work always and everywhere? Well, you need a healthy real estate market in order for that to happen. But how do we know that we're not giving too much to the developer, that by granting so much higher density or in different land uses, we are not gaining as much as possible for the public sector? What happens nowadays is that financial consultants are hired to analyze the economic lift of land as a result of the granting higher densities. And in the city of Santa Monica, for example, the city asked the developer to generate an economic analysis. Then the city's consultants will do the same analysis. The consultants, if there is disagreement, will talk to each other. And then agreement is reached as to what the increasing value of the land is. And on the basis of that increase, then the community benefits are measured also in terms of the impact of the developer. Now, for the other side of the coin, what happens when we impose regulations such as inclusionary housing we have been talking about, or also commercial linkage fees? I'm sure you know commercial linkage fees are fees developers pay when they build a shopping center or an office building or an hotel. Many of the employees will make salaries which will not allow them to afford a market rate dwelling unit. So the regulations increase costs for developers. So the question is, who pays those costs? There are three parties, actually. Can be the buyers and renters of the market rate housing,
Right.
can be the developers themselves through a reduction of the profit, or can be the landowner. And economists will generally agree that given some time to the market to adjust to the additional costs, the land values will disagree.
Okay.
So to summarize, with plan changes and upzonings, land values go up. But programs such as inclusionary housing, commercial linkage fees, or development impact fees as well will tend to lower land prices. So what are the implications? There are many implications. I would just emphasize the ones which have to do with possible state legislation. Let's look at the housing element. So we know what housing elements do. They ask localities to designate particular sites for multifamily densities. And they have to rezone that within 3 years. If they did not do that in the previous cycle, they have to rezone within 1 year. So what happens to the value of the land of those parcels which have been designated as multifamily housing? The value of the land goes up. So ironically, what you do is you increase the cost of the land when we're trying to create affordable housing developments. So the first proposal is to change the housing element and to make this change, the changes so that you mandate, localities would mandate, that you state would mandate localities to do inclusionary requirements for localities who do not have inclusionary housing, and for higher requirements for localities which already have inclusionary housing. So you would have a dual inclusionary system, one which is the existing and one which would be in place for the sites where inclusionary, where the density have been increased.
Density bonus.
So then there is also CEQA. CEQA as well. If you do what has been discussed here this afternoon, also you will increase the price of land, because by reducing regulation, you're making the land more appetizing. The second proposal is to establish a land gains tax. This is a long-term proposal, but I would like to throw it in this afternoon. And here I have a quote from Milton Friedman, so it's not from a left person, but it basically says that we need to throw out ideas so that they stick around, they are alive for a while, and then they might become politically inevitable. And I think that possibly in the next few years, if the crisis continues, we might be talking about land gains tax. I'm sure that some of you know The Economist is an international economic journal. It's certainly not something that Sanders would, Bernie Sanders would like to subscribe to. But here I want to point out that in the London area, there is a huge crisis, similar to ours in California. If you look at the graphs there, they are very similar to what Professor Galante showed, which is the production of housing going down since the 1970s and the cost of housing going up as well. I would like to add to what Professor Galante says, that she attributed CEQA and Prop 13 to this increase in the cost of housing. I would like to add another one, which has to do with the fact that available easy land to develop on at that time it sort of disappeared. I was in San Diego in 1980, and I could see there was no more land. In San Diego, you talk about the mesas, the flat land. And there was not much land to build on. That was easy to build. And this, I think, was true for many other cities as well. Now we build in urban communities where to build is much more expensive. So I would say that is another factor why housing prices increased. But what I want to emphasize is that The Economist, of all publications, says the ideal solution would be a tax on the value of land. But we don't have to look at London. In this country, we have a land gains tax, which taxes exchanges of sales of land, which has been held for less than 60 years. This was passed because there was a great deal of change of ownership to do single-family developments at the time when Vermont was connected to New York through freeways. So there was a great deal of development, which was environmentally damaging as well. But you can see what the principle is. The shorter you have the land and the higher the amount of money that you make, the more tax you pay, and vice versa. So I think there was some discussion. Is Professor Galante still here? No, but she discussed that when she was talking about a tax on, at the time when a single-family home is sold, that you will. So it's very similar. So finally, in order to build housing, we need land, and not suburban land, which was much easier to develop on, but we need the kind of land which we find along what could be transportation corridors. This is outside my office, San Pablo Avenue, which goes from Oakland to San Pablo, 13 miles of one-story buildings. Those two four-story buildings on the left picture and on the right picture, they've been there for 5 years. There is no building activity. Why is there no land for sale in order to build this kind of buildings that we need? And that would work wonderfully also with a rapid bus transit system, for example. Well, I think is scarcity, and the scarcity comes from the fact that because of Prop 13, there is no incentive for the property owners to sell. They're paying very little taxes. So Prop 13, there is a Senate amendment in the works, a constitutional amendment to reform Prop 13. It was a talk today by Professor Galante. It would be the split roll tax. What is talked about is the need to be fair between the residential, because residential owners, eventually the land is sold, the house is sold. And at that time, the taxes increased tremendously. I've experienced that myself. But commercial land, that doesn't happen in most cases, as you probably know.
But you want to see the commercial switched over to residential?
No, what I want is for commercial properties to be assessed regularly.
But that doesn't solve the housing side. That's a residential issue.
This would make sure or incentivize owners of land on places like San Pablo Avenue, which do not sell land because they're paying very little taxes, to bring their land on the market. What we're really experiencing is the scarcity of buildable land. Wherever I go to meetings.
What I'm saying is you want that land to then be used for residential purposes.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Thank you. I didn't want to talk about Henry George.
You didn't want to.
But I should mention, the beginning of my talk is that we don't talk about land in this country, but that's ironic because in the late 1900s, probably the greatest thinker about capturing the value of land was Henry George. And his thinking spread throughout the world. And there were George's clubs all over the world. I don't know if you're familiar with that. So it's not that we're creating something new, but it's part of our tradition. So these are my main, the three recommendations. One has to do with the housing element. The other one has to do with a land gains tax, possibly a long-term idea. And the third one is Prop 13. Again, Prop 13 reassessment is important not only for creating more money for schools and so on, but also to create affordable housing, to create more land for development. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Questions? Senator Wachowski.
On the secondary units, Mr. Ray.
Oh, I knew you'd ask about that.
I have,
That's your
you're
subject.
talking about fees. And can you talk a little bit about, not simply city fees, but the school district, the water district, all the other special districts that have an impact fee when you, if you actually go out and draw a permit?